Let me start by saying a few words about my own background. I am Siti Nur Ainafisa binti Sazali. As you can see on the screen, our topic today is about macroeconomic problem in Japan, but I will talk about the introduction of Japan and will be continued by other group members. Japan is an Eastern Asia, an island chain located between the North Pacific Ocean and the Sea of Japan, east of the Korean Peninsula. Japan is an archipelago of group of islands located at Asia's easternmost point. There are 4 main islands: Kyushu, Shikoku, Honshu, and Hokkaido. Additionally, there are almost 4,000 tiny islands. The Siberian area of Russia is Japan's closest neighbor on the continent, whereas Korea and China are farther south. Then, for the information, Japan is the 10th most populated nation in the world with a population of about 126.5 million. However, low birth rates and aging population are causing Japan's population to decline. In addition, Japan is the world's third largest economy after the United States and China. The country is also a high-tech powerhouse economy in Asia, and for religions, Shintoism and Buddhism are 2 significant religions that have an impact on Japanese tradition and culture.
Hi everyone, my name is Nur Sharafana binti Shafial. So today I want to present about the implementation of the economic policies in Japan. So after Shinzo Abe was duly elected to be the Prime Minister of Japan, he introduces the new economic policies of Japan, which is Abenomics. The purpose of these policies is to retrieve back the country from a 2-decade deflationary spiral. This policy has 3 main components, or it is also called as 3 arrows of Abenomics, which is first, fiscal stimulus, second, monetary easing, and the last one is structural reform. So, for the first arrow, Japan has implemented a flexible fiscal stimulus. This policy represented new government spending program to promote demand and consumption short-term growth while achieving a long-term budget surplus. The method used is to increase the government spending. For example, the Japanese government invested trillions of yen in infrastructure such as flyovers, buildings, and motorways. As a result, spending on infrastructure development more than doubled the consumption tax and can produce thousands of new employment. Other than that, the second arrow of Abenomics is implementing a monetary easing policy. Monetary easing involves increasing the money supply and lowering interest rates to encourage borrowing and spending. For example, based on the past experience, banks and the financial institutions in Japan has begun to apply the stricter standards. So it is hard for the Japanese citizens to borrowing the money from the bank and take out loans from the bank. Hence, the Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, recommended lowering the interest rate to a negative level. The governments also start to begin printing more money in order to maintain the loan and spending cycle. As a result, it increased the expenditure on products and services, which led to price hikes on those items. Lastly, the third area of Abenomics is implementing the structural reforms. Structural reform is making changes to the economy to promote the growth and efficiency. Reform here means new several rules to make Japanese companies to look more competitive and to promote the private sector investment. For example, the labor shortage issue in Japan. So the government encourages the greater female participation in the labor force, in part by improving childcare facilities. The government also encourages the retired people to continue working. As a result, the labor shortage issue can be overcome. To conclude, this policy has been done successfully and it is also increased the economic development of Japan. Okay, thank you.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Ain Yasmina binti Jafar Saj from AM12002D. My metric number is 2022870296. Inflation is defined as the continuous rise in the average price of goods and services in certain region. In Japan, consumer price inflation has ranged between -1.4% and 23.2% during the last 62 years. For 2022, a 2.5% inflation rate was recorded. Overall, the price increase was 473%. To illustrate, an item that cost 100 yen in 1960 now costs 573 yen at the start of 2022. While other countries are fighting to keep inflation from rising, Japan has suffered for decades with low inflation, slow growth, and deflation. However, Japan had a stock market fall and a financial crisis in 1989. After turning into deflation in 2000s and then back into inflation during the COVID-19 pandemic, Japan's inflation rate has stayed low ever since.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Noaina Shafia binti Muhammad Ridwan, and today I'm going to talk about unemployment. Unemployment is a situation where a person actively searches for employment but is unable to find work. Unemployment is to be a key to measure of the health of the economy. High unemployment rates have negative impact on the economy because it can lead to reduced GDP growth, decreased tax income, and increased government spending. For the first point, Japan has one of the lowest jobless rate. Compared to the other country, Japan rate unemployment during COVID-19 has increased from 2.4% in February 2020 to 3.1% in May 2020, which is it reaching the highest level since 2010. However, during April 2020, the unemployment rate dropped to 2.4%. Next, Japan unemployment rate still remain low despite the COVID-19. This is because flexible labor market. Japanese labor market is flexible. Business were able to shift their workforce in reaction to pandemic, including hiring fewer people, lowering working hours, and deploy temporary labor. Lastly, because cultural factor, hard labor and dedication to one employer are valued in Japanese society. This may reduce the likelihood of Japanese workers being laid off forcing the pandemic. For the last point is pandemic can cause severe drop in economic activity. This is because they can lead to a number of factors that can disrupt economic activity, including reduced demand for goods and services. When people are sick or worried about getting sick, they are less likely to spend money on goods and services. Other than that, supply chain disruption. Pandemic can also disrupt supply chain, which can make it difficult for business to get goods and services they need to operate, and this can lead to shortage of goods and services.
So since we already identified the macroeconomic problems that Japan is facing, let's take a look into the solutions that can be implemented by the government to overcome these issues by applying the fiscal and monetary policies. So firstly, the Japanese government can implement the expansionary fiscal policies. So by decreasing the tax rates, it allows people to keep more of their income. Not only that, businesses are more inclined to boost output of products and services if customers spend more money on goods and services. So for an example, when production increases, business will order more equipment and raw material, thus recruit more employees. So as a result, it could lower the country's inflation rate and at the same time increase employment because there is a need to hire workers to handle projects. So as you can see, the expansionary fiscal policies can help control both unemployment and inflation issues in the country. On the other hand, to overcome unemployment using the monetary policy, the government can implement the expansionary monetary policy by cutting down or lowering the interest rates. This is because borrowing is less expensive when interest rates are lower. In other words, people are most likely to spend more money and make greater investments if it's easier to borrow money from the bank. Other initiatives that can be taken into account is by simplifying the approval procedure for government projects and offering monetary rewards to employers for recruiting workers. Moreover, another way for Japan to overcome inflation is to implement the contractionary monetary approach, as it helps to slow down the economy by reducing the money supply using the following instruments. Instrument number 1 is increase short-term interest. The government can raise the cost of short-term debt by raising the short-term interest to restrict the money supply. When banks boost the interest rates that they charge their clients, the rise of interest rates will directly impact the consumers and businesses in the economy. So overall, higher interest rates mean people will spend less on products and services, which will cause inflation to fall. Instrument number 2 is raise reserve requirements. If commercial banks in Japan have a higher reserve requirement, less money are available to lend to consumers and businesses. Raising reserve requirement initially means taking out money out of the money supply and at the same time increasing the cost of credit.
For conclusion, the development of economic activity creates plenty of work possibilities for the populace and lowers the unemployment rate, making the economy of a nation highly significant. As an illustration, consider the following occupation: teacher, manager, manufacturer, salesperson, shopkeeper, farmer, fisherman, fishing sector, lodger, forestry sector, and miner. Meaning industry and include the development industry, because they have the purchasing power to acquire higher life necessities. People with a wide range of work options may also enhance the income of the population and further improve their standard of living.